Rebecca, are you with me?
I am. Good evening.
Good evening. Tobias, are you with me? He's not quite with us. But Rebecca, somehow, there seems to be some shift. This is 5 o'clock, PST. It should be the time of the beginning of your show, but I haven't heard the jingle. Something that they're kind of out by a couple of minutes or something. Anyway, so, long story. So, over to you, our delightful host, Rebecca Jernigan.
So let me ask you, are they going to play the jingle or do we even know?
I think we're just going to have to assume that it's happened unless it starts cutting in. Oh, hi, Toby.
Hi, you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. Welcome.
Good. Thank
and
you.
We're actually live. We just don't know if the beginning of the show credits and the music and all that's going to play. So, here it is. Welcome to Journeys with Rebecca.
Never
Listen,
a dull moment.
Never, ever. I want to welcome everybody. I hope everyone's having a good evening. So I'd be remiss if I didn't start it out. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet Earth. This is your host, Rebecca Jernigan. You're listening to Journeys with Rebecca right here on wolfspiritradio.com and also Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, Studio B. And as a wonderful reminder, both stations, Wolf Spirit Radio and Freedom Slips, are totally listener supported. So please, any donations really do make a difference. It allows for all the continuing shows, their hosts and guests to continue their work in providing the best and latest information. And of course, we know that none of this is mainstream. And please visit my website, journeyswithrebecca.com. Check out the archives, the upcoming guests and their topics, along with any classes or workshops, as well as setting your appointment for a session. And there's always a free newsletter for you to sign up, and you're going to find that on the left side panel of every page that you go to. So I hope you do sign up. And as tonight, our guest and co-host is going to be Tobias, we're going to get into some pretty interesting topics tonight. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things, but to include the construct and AI programming that is in place that can prevent people from accessing information. This is what I call the higher-minded information, and there's just so much more to that. And if we can get into it and we have enough time, we'll also be taking questions as it pertains to tonight's topics. I did want to let everyone know that next week's guest is going to be right up this same alley. Her name is Solaris Blue Raven. She is an absolutely fantastic person. I was so honored to be a guest on both of her different shows that she does. But she is a published author. She also does timeline astrology, remote viewing. She also is an assessment specialist in psychotronic warfare, synthetic telepathy, and covert technology. So she is going to be here next week to really get into this AI stuff because she's got firsthand information. So it's going to be absolutely fantastic information. It's going to be kind of a follow-up and getting into more depth and information than what we're even going to get into tonight from a whole different angle, obviously. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm always remiss in reminding people of who the guests are. And I want to say thank you to all of those and your well-wishers. Just to give you a just quick synopsis, we had some pretty high temperatures here, and I got extremely overheated, and it makes me very, very ill. It takes me down for a couple of days. So, of course, that happened on a Monday, and so I apologize for not being here last week. And the guest that was scheduled is scheduled for next month. We've already got her rescheduled, so she will be on the show next month. Let me see what date that will be. That will be the 10th of July, and that will be Lisa Barnett. She's going to be a fabulous host, and I've got a couple other really fantastic guests that I will be posting to the website, so please make sure you check that out. That's journeyswithrebecca.com. And that being said, let's welcome Tobias and our little traveler here from Canada to the United States this month. And he had a wonderful trip, and we were able to speak briefly on it. And, but we want to bring him forward and say hello again to Tobias.
Hello, Rebecca. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you for that. Welcome.
Oh, are you kidding? It's just lovely, and it's lovely. It's lovely to hear your voice, and it's lovely to hear JP. And lest I forget, I want to say thank you, JP, for all the work that you do and bringing the shows here and doing what you do. And so thank you for that. I just want everyone to know that he's just one of my favoriteest people, and so is Tobias. So I feel like a pretty lucky girl these days.
Wow, I can't follow that. That's perfect. And yeah, JP, JP. It's nice to even just say JP. JP's been around a lot of years, and it's one of those things. He does so much behind the scenes. He's done so much in public. He's had his own shows. He's done your show. He's done all of these things, and it's really nice to just acknowledge that sometimes, because you know what? It's just good to know that JP is in this world, and it's the same with you, Rebecca. It's a good feeling.
Thank you. And I guess we have Revolution Radio Studio B back online. Apparently
I'm just checking with Patrick English on Rev B. I've got this thing that is set to. Oops. There's one. All right. Okay. No. Yes. No. Hang on. I'm getting conversations now, but I think we're back online on Revolution B, which means that I can then relinquish the line from my studio, so that we're now relaying back from Revolution Studio B.
Okay.
So I hope that there's stuff going. Hey, let me just check it. But there's a lot of yeah. Anything? You have no idea. It started off really well. It had a really good show with, but things got delayed. But, right, I've come on. Okay, good. Yeah, we're on. So now. Right. Okay. It's all good now. So we're online on Revolution Radio Studio B, a listener supported station. Please donate by sticking stuff in our money box. And you're also online on Wall Spirit Radio, Studio A and Studio B, courtesy of Airtime. Thank you very much. And, you're listening to Journeys with Rebecca Jernigan.
Thank you, JP. Oh my goodness. It's a Monday, folks. It's a Monday. It's been a day. It's been a day. This has been probably one of the most interesting and chaotic days I have personally spent in a long time. I surely don't miss them. But you have to just laugh at what goes on. For sure. You just have to. Because it's just the idea and the knowledge that, here is technology. It's not stable. We can make no assumptions about anything. All we can do is try. And if it works, great. We've got a good day going. And if it doesn't work, well, we're actually, we've got all these new energies out there. We're working with technology we think is pretty sophisticated, when in all actuality, it probably is so antiquated, when you compare it to these new energies that are floating around there. So it's not a wonder, in my opinion, that we're not, having the best connections and stable connections anymore. As a matter of fact, it surprises me when everything actually works.
Well, it surprises me when my connection to my own brain works sometimes, to be honest. So, and we've got to remember, we are connected. The technology is connected to the reality field. So that's always a danger, right?
Well, everything does seem to be wibbling around a bit, doesn't it? It's like, things are melting in the sun.
Yeah. Yeah, did you see the major heat wave over here in the western part of the United States?
Heat wave! Yeah, well, Willow, the manager of Studio B, says perhaps our heat waves burned out the connections. And because there weren't any adverts, there weren't any commercials or jingles between her show and ours. So something is up but we're still transmitting, but the the little machine that makes the jingles at the hour and time that, right, has lost its clockwork. Somebody's, unclicked it. So we may or may not have adverts at the top and the bottom of the hour. We could just go on, just relax, just like talk, but I think we will. It happens.
And it'll be fine if it happens. It'll be fine if it doesn't happen.
Everything
right?
will be fine. Everything is always fine. And if you want me to play some music, and there was no things, then that's fine. It's one of those. It's really nice to hear you, Tobias. It's like the gang's together again. It's really nice.
Yeah,
and Rebecca, how are you?
That is so true. Yeah.
Oh, darling, I'm doing much better. Thank you. And it just always is such a pleasure to sit in your energy and Tobias's energy and the audience's energy. It's just an uplifting, no matter how weird or strange or odd or whatever my day has been, sitting down here on a Monday and connecting with all these wonderful people and yourselves. It just makes everything all right for a couple hours. Seriously.
You were talking about a heat wave in the United States. That must be a reference to the last week when I happened to be driving 4,000 kilometers across Northern America through North Dakota and Montana down into Wyoming. And I'm telling you, you said 125 degrees. I think it was 150 degrees in my car. I am so very glad that I got the air conditioning working before I left. But yeah, that was some trip, I tell you.
Well, so, tell us what you thought of, before we get into the heavier stuff here, why don't you share with everybody any fun things that, may be of interest, or experiences that you might have had, on your trip here. I know most of it was just for kind of connecting with old friends, but we can always have experiences no matter what the situation is.
Oh, always experiences. Yeah, all sorts of experiences from the sort of menial to the impressive. I just had a really great time. I mean, I guess the main thing that I should say is that I don't know if I got some buffalo dust in my throat. That's a nice way of putting it, by the way. Or some sort of funny worms were floating through the air or chemtrails. But I'm telling you, 2 or 3, I think 2 days into my trip, and I started getting this little itch into my throat. I'm like, oh, this is not good, because my friend that had flown from Vancouver to Winnipeg, to come with me on the road trip along with another friend of ours that I've known for, almost 20 years, all these guys. He said, I think I'm getting sick too. So I'm like, well, this is not the greatest thing. We're just starting this road trip, but it's going to be an adventure. But yeah, this little tickle in my throat began, and then I started losing my voice and coughing. But, so, even post-trip, I got back from the trip. I know you asked about the trip, and now I'm talking about after the trip. But I get home and I realize, oh my gosh, I've booked all of these sessions with people all over the place, and I've got sessions coming out of the woodwork, but I had very little voice, so I was a little stressed, but nonetheless, they worked out, and I got through the week, and I have probably about 95% of my voice back. But anyway, the trip.
So let me ask you, yes, you said something about you didn't know if it was chemtrails. Do you not get those up where you're at?
Well, that's a really good question, because, several years ago, we got a lot over the city of Winnipeg. In fact, it was something that was very eye-opening for me because, a lot of people listening have probably seen these videos on YouTube or had their very own experiences with little filaments and almost like cobwebs floating out of the sky on a perfectly clear day and strange phenomenon like that are related to chemtrails. And that is something that I've experienced right here in my own backyard in Winnipeg, Manitoba. However, I must say, this is something that has not happened for many, many years. I'm talking probably 4 or 5 years. I haven't seen anything like that happen. Do I see chemtrails up in the sky, high in the atmosphere sometimes? I think so. But nothing really, really prevalent like I'm seeing in videos from other places in the world. Even in Vancouver, there's a lot of spraying there. And getting back sort of to last week, Yellowstone National Park, the first day I went into there, Absolutely beautiful day, blue skies. It was glorious by all accounts. And then started these chemtrails. And I was like, wow, this is what it's like. And actually, to be honest with you, that was the day that I started getting problems with my throat. So I can't say that that was the cause, but I can say that that was probably, a contributing factor to the whole, melancholy mix of nastiness that I experienced until, just a few days ago. But yeah.
Well, there's times when, and I don't believe that the, chemtrail mixture itself, whatever they're using, is always the same. Because when they spray around here, when they spray those chemtrails, they look different, sometimes from one day to the next,
Yeah.
how they fall out of the sky, what colors they are, what they do as far as, whether sometimes it looks like paint just kind of dripping down, and then other times, it's like these little puffs that fly away, and it's just different. Almost every time it's different. So, and there are times when I go outside and certain of those chemtrails, I mean, it will just literally, it's like all of a sudden I just go into a coughing, almost allergic fit, over them, and I have to just really watch that. So I'm really
Hmm.
sorry that you had that kind of experience, and it's unfortunate that it's worldwide. I used to think it was mostly in the United States, but you see it everywhere, in almost every country that I've ever seen, video of or anything like that, or movies that they shoot that are, more recent, and they, take pictures of the sky. There's always chemtrails in it. I mean, they're very distinct, and it's a shame. It's just an absolute shame. And I'm sorry that you just didn't have the best feeling time while you were here.
No, I had some really great experiences. I mean, even the second day that we went through Yellowstone, we went through half of the park the first day, half the park the other day, or the next day. And, that is a big park. I'm telling you, I'm talking over 100 miles to drive around, and it's through mountains. Parts of it is through the snow levels. There was ice on the sides of the road and snow, and there's literally buffalo, around each corner sometimes, right on the street. There's, the second day I saw 7 bears. The first bear had 2 little babies and was
Aw.
in the grass. The last bear I saw was a grizzly bear, and it was, sleeping under the tree, in the shade, because it was again a very hot day. No chemtrails the second day, by the way. But absolutely a beautiful thing to see this beautiful, almost untouched land in the middle of America, notwithstanding the fact that things are happening in our skies, things are happening all around us, in our world. It's just, such a good feeling to sort of detach and get away from it. For the most part, of course, if I looked into the sky, I would see those chemtrails the first day, but just to detach from it. And that was really the whole sort of climate, the whole, principle behind my trip. I wanted to just, I won't say I wanted to be normal for a week, because I don't think that's possible, but I just wanted maybe to pretend to be normal and sort of detach from all the psychic things and, all the things that we do and love to do. I just wanted to be, kind of nothing. I just wanted to exist, and I pretty much got that, and it was quite a lot of fun. Except one day, one of my friends that was with me, we're in a pharmacy or a grocery store in Montana, and he said, "Tobias, could you hold this and tell me if it's good?" And so I have this sort of ability to tell different products. I can sort of tell what's in them. It's just one of my little talents, I guess you'd call it.
Sure.
And I said, "No, can I not be normal for 1 week?" And I handed it back to him. So that was about that. But I really enjoyed just, not trying not to think, but it's a long drive. It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place, and you can really sort of get back to nature going through the Great Plains and Montana and North Dakota and through into Wyoming. Just a beautiful area.
It is, and I'm glad you were able to enjoy it as well. At least if nothing else for the scenery and the very kind of serenity that surrounds those areas of the United States. It's absolutely stunning. So cool. Well,
Yeah.
so let's have you put back on the Tobias hat for a minute.
All
And
right.
your normal moments have stopped now.
It's all over.
It's
It's
all over
all
now.
over.
We're done. We're done with normal. And honestly, I have no definition for that anymore because I think, oh gosh, that would be normal to them. It's not normal to me, right? So
Yeah,
everybody has
exactly.
their own perspective on what normal is. In any case, let's talk a little bit about, uh, the construct and the programs running in it and, all of that you wanted to kind of, begin these topics with tonight. And we're going to kind of go from there. And again, I'm going to remind everybody, if you do have, questions tonight, as it pertains to our topics here for myself or Tobias, please do put them in all caps in the chat room, so that we can retrieve them or read them, and get your questions answered tonight. So that being said, Tobias, you're up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, most of you listening probably know a lot of what Rebecca does in her work and what I do in my work. And part of what I do is I educate, and I have a course called Practical Modern Magic. So, I'm always out there. I'm communicating with people and doing different types of sessions with people just all over the world. And I get feedbacks and things. Rebecca, I know you do as well. It's always interesting because just recently, Rebecca and I had a chance to talk, in our, it's so hard to be able to connect sometimes, isn't it? But we actually had about, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes. We talked one day and it was interesting because we start seeing trends. We start seeing common trends between the work and the people that Rebecca is connecting with and the people and the work I'm connecting with through my practices. And it's always fascinating. And one of the trends that I noticed, and in fact, I didn't even get a chance to ask you about this, Rebecca. That day that we spoke, we saw other trends and spoke of other trends. But one of the trends that's been very prominent with me recently is people coming to me and telling me, look, I don't know what is happening. I tried to study with the material you sent me. I tried to look at something on the internet that you referred me to learn how to use crystals. And several times people have come to me saying, and it's like, I just can't make myself do it. Or I forget, or something strange happens and I just never can get to it. And it rang a bell in my head because it reminded me of something that was very, very prominent and serious in my life many, many years ago. Not that it's gone away because it's still a reality, but it was super prominent with me many years ago because when I was learning and relearning to use crystals properly, certain technologies, advanced systems, and learning to, get back connection to my subconscious mind and do all of these things that we talk about and do, one thing that happened over and over and over again was that the things that I was, my teachers and different people were telling me, here's some material, you need to look at this, you need to study this, and you need to look at that. These things were extremely difficult for me to even make myself do. And not just that, but even when I could get around to like studying a video or reading through some material, it would go literally in one ear and right out the other ear. It would not sit within my mind, within my conscious mind. It wouldn't absorb. And I was taught and I learned through these experiences that this is an actual intelligence. This is an actual technology that exists within the matrix, some would say. We might say within the construct, which is basically the same thing as the matrix. And this is something that I have come to learn over the years is an absolutely incredibly ominous reality when it comes to trying to make progress in learning the things that we do every day, in learning how to connect with your past, how to connect with your natural abilities. As you said at the beginning of the show, what you refer to as the higher-minded things, because the bottom line with this is it's a very real artificial intelligence, and I wouldn't even say that all of it is artificial because there's so many levels of it. I'm sure you'll speak to that, Rebecca. but it's a very, very real system that is in place to prevent people from making progress and to prevent people from making gaining knowledge on very specific subjects, such as the ones we talk about, such as the ones we practice, and such as those that we do ourselves in our practices with people all over the world. So one of the things that people say when I bring up this topic is they say, oh, sometimes you're like, well, that doesn't make sense to me, Tobias. Like, what do you mean? Some system doesn't want us to make progress. It doesn't want us to succeed. That makes no sense. But yes, it does. Because the system that we so eloquently refer to as the matrix or the construct is usually one that is built around, ensuring that people stay within that box, within that system that they deem necessary and correct for this world and this time. So, some may use words such as to be the slaves that they want us to be, or to be, dumbed down even, or to have our eyes just, be puppets. Like these things, although it's not everyone's favorite topic, are very important things to address because these are things that affect our wellness and our future and everything and everything. So I know that's a big mouthful that I gave there, but that's really what I've noticed again coming up time and time again with some of my students and some of my clients is that there's a very real force that's apparent that actually pushes us away from latching on to these higher minded things and the things that will really allow us to make progress in a big way. And I don't mean just, little things. I mean in a big way because that's the way it's built, right?
And so let me speak to that for a little bit. And for the people out there that haven't followed through the years the bits and pieces of the information that I've shared on the construct, I'm going to start out by saying the construct is a technology. It's been in place for a very, 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 very long time. And this technology works off of energy, and it's a technology that's beyond our own current knowledge of physics. It's not beyond the knowledge of our memories of different timelines that we may have existed in. But most of us aren't able to access it. It was one of the things that happened to us as each time we reincarnate on the karmic wheel here on this planet Earth is the amnesia. They call it, some people call that the veil. And the veil has, in the last 10 to 15 years, has weakened to the point where it's almost non-existent, but if people still believe in the veil, it still becomes a barrier to them. So it's the kind of the minor part of the bigger part of the construct, so to speak. But the construct itself, it was designed to keep us, as Tobias said, in this box. And it's based on, again, on a technology that we're not familiar with here on this planet Earth. At least, most of us are not. It has a lot to do with the preventativeness that Tobias was speaking about, which is to connect, and it allows us to connect. It does not always allow us to connect to our higher mindedness. It's important that people can step outside of the matrix and they can see it for what it is. That's easier said than done. But for those who are persistent or have a natural ability to be able to separate the construct from actual reality, they're able to understand that it's what prevents many people from reaching and attaining what we would consider maybe on some level the lost information. It's not really lost. It's just kind of floating out there waiting for us to access it. It's available. It's not a feat that cannot be completed by most of us. most people can actually get outside of the construct if they work at it. There's a lot of techniques and tools that can be taught to people so that they can get out of this space. And Tobias's explanation of the trend, which is I have a hard time retaining things. I even have a hard time even getting to the point of even looking something up, or I just forget things, don't understand what it is I'm reading. It just goes in one ear and out the other, or and it does happen, and sometimes it's worse than others for most people. So what you have to do is you have to just stop and take a deep breath when those moments happen. And you just have to say, okay, there's a block or an obstacle here. And I think there's probably some people out there that may feel like this, that may have felt like, they just couldn't get there from here. They just like, I can't do this, but you can do it. You can. I promise you that you can. See, I got sidetracked there. And there's this wall that comes down that prevents us from getting to the other side to pick up on these pieces of information. And that's just what just now happened. So it's just like, oh, here, you want to experience it? Here, let me show you again.
You see that?
Yeah. So it just happens. And so you can't get frustrated by it. What you have to go is, okay, I'm just going to push that aside. I realize that it's there, but I'm going to push it aside. It doesn't own me anymore. We're so used to operating in it. We operate it still. We operate, each of us, even if we can see outside of it, even if we can function outside of it, it's still part of our daily life because it still exists. And as long as this technology still exists, it's still going to have some kind of, I don't know. I don't really want to say hold, but it certainly has influence on our days, on our weeks, our months, our years, whatever the case may be, certainly by our actions and activities. So I would suggest that everybody, if they could just sit down for a moment and figure out when their best time of the day is, when you feel most alert, when you feel the most strong, when you feel the most energized, whatever those things feel like to you. To do the kind of work that you want to do. It's what's going to allow you to bypass or to get past and connect to that higher mindedness, to what Tobias talks about as his magic, his modern magic. And the magic is not a sleight of the hand. To me, it's science that our science really hasn't caught up with, is all it means to me. It's this, that's what magic means. It's just science. Our science has not accepted it. But we're coming to a point soon, I think, and hopefully in my timeline, where this information is going to become accessible to everybody. I wanted to bring up for just a moment that the construct is one of those things that I have been compiling a lot of information on, especially over the last 1.5 to 2 years on the construct, and it's one of the books that I'm getting ready to try to sit down and write. I have a second book that I'm also working on at the same time, kind of simultaneous, because there is a little bit of crossover between them. And I'm looking for volunteers, by the way. For those of you who don't get my newsletter, I'm looking for a couple of volunteers that maybe help with some editing of the content of one or both of the books, whichever works for you. If you are interested in pursuing that or would like some more information, I'd be happy to answer questions. You can email me at journeyswithrebecca@yahoo.com. That's journeyswithrebecca@yahoo.com. But the construct is a very real thing, just like anything else, like the Matrix, that movie wasn't so far off base. It was a little different, but it wasn't so far off base in its behavior. It's a little bit more extreme, but it really hit home for those of you who may have watched it. And if not, I suggest you at least try to watch it and get past the Hollywood hype on it, and then just really see what the actual movie is actually trying to tell you. There's, I think, 3 of them. I think it was a trilogy, if I'm not mistaken. Very interesting stuff. But so I know that was a little disjointed. My conversation there was a little disjointed. that was because there was a lot of individuals that were stepping forward. They all had something they wanted to say, and they wouldn't stop talking over each other. So it became very difficult for me to actually talk while I was trying to listen and communicate with him at the same time. So I apologize for the disjointedness of that conversation earlier for me. But I hope that helps a little bit, and that probably many of you might have some questions, some more specific questions on it, and we'd be happy to answer those during the course of the show. Make sure you put all your questions in caps, all caps, so we know that it's a question. But yeah, it's a very real thing. I think you were on when I was talking about this has just been recently, talking about the talking heads. That's actually part of the construct, by the way. It's actually attached to part of that. There's, the construct, you can break it down into compartments. You compartmentalize anything, right? And the construct is no different. You can compartmentalize it. But in the grander scheme, it's way bigger than words could actually, correctly or even accurately come. It just doesn't, it's just no words for it. It just won't convey, the enormity of it, the intricacy of it, the depth of it, the beginnings of it and what its purpose was. And there's a lot of things that's involved with the construct. I talk about it kind of offhandedly, but it's extremely multi-layered and multifaceted, and gets into past my understanding of science. Conceptually I understand it, but I have nothing to refer to it sounds like or seems like or is like, because there's nothing like it. It's just, it is what it is.
And it also has, some of the components of the construct are based on vast amounts of technologies, ancient technologies, technologies from other worlds, other time periods, other realities. It's all mixed in, because this is not something that simply happened in the snap of a finger. This is something that's been, created and modified and adapted like any program, like a computer program. You open a file, you start creating a program. You say, this is what happens when you push F1. This is what happens when you push the enter key. If you sense that something's moving past the camera, this is going to jump up and appear. This is the sort of programming that the entire construct, in association with reality itself, through the chi field, which again, that's a big thing for me to say, because the chi field is something that I teach, and Rebecca, is the fuel behind reality. One of the fuels, I should say, one of the main fuels, maybe I should say, but it's one of the fuels. It's really a fuel of psychic ability, higher thinking, and all of these phenomenon that, as you describe, are actually science. These are the things, this is the energy behind these things. So when you have a construct that's integrated into the system, into the energy field, you have something that can manipulate and control on levels that you can barely even comprehend. You add to that the fact that this incredibly powerful system is reaching out into reality and pulling on other energies, pulling on other information, other higher-minded information. Oftentimes it's pulling on information from the distant past and pulling on information from the distant future. It is truly a very real construct that works outside of time itself. That alone gives it vast, vast power. Not to mention all of the other things we just discussed there. The energy, with the fact that it's connected to, the psychic, the energy stream. But anyways, let me keep on track here. It'll reach out into this reality. It'll use everything available to it, including other types of energies. One of the most prevalent energies that it will pull right in and convert and throw at things now is what I call chaos energy. and other people will call it chaos energy too, but it is a very real energy that if you have the ability to see, you could actually put it in a cup, in a glass, and see, oh look, that's chaos energy. You know, it's as real as gasoline in the tank of a car. And when this type of energy is used, well, it's called chaos for a reason. It creates the most unbelievable circumstances. It creates bad luck. It creates chaos. It creates confusion. It creates this big, nasty environment. I call it an energy environment of things that truly could not, you would think could not happen in nature because they simply don't make sense. The only way you can make sense out of this is to realize this is chaos energy, and it's the nature of chaos to be chaotic and not make sense. So that's just, a couple of examples, or one example with the chaos energy of the different ingredients that this system that we call the construct can reach out into. It has available to it, and it again, because it's connected directly to our reality and our experience and everything that is, basically, it has deep connections into every aspect of it. It does things that we cannot even imagine how it can possibly do that. And I mean, oftentimes when you have people say, how could this even be possible? It's because it's actually being done through this artificial intelligence or this construct system and affecting reality itself.
And I'm going to speak to that here in just a moment, but we have a question, and I don't want it to get too far gone before we get to the question. And this was from Greenheart. The question is, are we eternal souls or programs in a higher dimensional tech fabrication subject to interference by pathogenic paranoid artificial intelligence? Do you want to answer that, or would you like me to?
I would love to be a part of answering that. I'll do it real quick. For me, I can't wait to hear what your take on that is. For me, even when I see things around me in my environment, my world, and my reality that are biologically, organically real, I say real in quotation marks, I still see these as programs. We are living within a system, a reality itself. I see everything as a program. That's not a negative word. It's not a negative thing, even though programs can certainly be created to cause negative things. I'm just saying, to me, there's both. There's biological programs, biological entities, biological realities, and then there's exactly what Greenheart described there. There's the other elements that are not natural. They are, I forget the word that Greenheart used, but certainly I think there's
pathogenic, paranoid, artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. I think there's a mixture of both. And, to be honest, I deal with them every day. And I'm sure most of the listeners do too on different levels. And you do, Rebecca. So yeah, that's sort of my take on it.
So, here's my take. I'm going to split this into two parts. I believe that we're all eternal souls. I believe that the part that you're asking about, which is programs in a higher dimensional tech fabrication subject to interference by pathogenic paranoid artificial intelligence, has to do with what we would call the personality, or the personality of who we are, in a sense, our personalities. They are subject to the programming. The personalities. When I talked about the karmic cycle, I'm talking about the reincarnation cycle of coming back to this earth time and time again and reincarnating into another body. Our soul is eternal, and the personality that we come in with is kind of a combination, a culmination of a little bit of everything that we've ever been, some of it off-world, some of it within this karmic reincarnation cycle. But the part of it that can get programmed, that can be triggered by this artificial intelligence, is actual DNA. The DNA is nothing more than like your CPU. It's what, makes your eyes brown or blue or your hair black or orange or whatever color it is. It also carries all the things you've ever been. It carries everything in there, including every place, space, and time you have ever lived, you've ever existed, which means even from the very beginning of the soul's creation, whatever that means to you. So, can it be interfered with? Absolutely. But if you can access the parts of you that can recognize when it's being invaded, then you are better capable of bypassing a lot of its influence, whether negatively or positively, and most of the time it's negatively, because the construct, it was not built to be a positive, I shouldn't say it in that way. The construct was never created to be a negative or a positive. It was put into place as a control mechanism. And it's done its job very well, I might add. And that when I say it as a control mechanism, it's a very, very simplified terminology for something way bigger than that, because that sounds, that sounds kind of contrite in comparison, truly. But we're all eternal souls. But we have this DNA thing that goes around with us, and the key is being able to get into your DNA and unlocking it, locking up what you don't need. It also helps you to get to that higher mindedness that we talked about, that Tobias talked about, that I talked about in the beginning, so that you're better able to navigate in this kind of artificial construct, because it doesn't matter how much you know you're in it and you can operate outside of it, you still live within this construct because it's still there. But it doesn't have to influence you in the negative way, in the depth that it may be at this point, with just a little bit of work, a little bit of instruction, a little bit of focus, and you can begin to unlock those keys from within you to be able to see outside of this mechanism that I call the construct. I hope that answers your question.
It's very much a part of what we were discussing a little while ago when it comes to, you want to get to something that's higher minded, or you want to study something, or there's specific subjects within this system that are very difficult because of the construct to address, and to remember and to absorb. It's the same thing when you can begin to recognize that something actually just interfered with your thinking, interfered with what you were about to do. Then because you're armed with that knowledge and you're familiar with this possibility, then you can truly begin, as you just described, Rebecca, in building a stronger conscious awareness of what's happening, and build upon that so that it affects you less and less. Absolutely. So important.
And I talk about being an energy sensitive, and I believe that that portion of me, has been my biggest benefit, in all of this is recognizing what I call the subtleties, the things that most people do not look at or feel or sense. And by being an energy sensitive, you can get into the more subtleness of this, because the construct is not in your face. It doesn't stand there with the flag going, look at me, I'm interfering. It's not that kind of a thing. But you have to actually listen to the subtleties, and you have to feel and sense them. And the more you do that, the better capable you are of walking into any kind of a situation and being way more aware than you might be at this moment. And there's again, tips and tools and things like that can help you get to that point. But it does take some time until you find your own, and I call it rhythm. I've always called it rhythm, because when people talk, there's a rhythm. When they sing, there's a rhythm. When they walk, there's a rhythm. There's a rhythm to the air movement. There's a rhythm to the rain. Everything has its own resonance field, its own energy, its own signature. And that's what I call a signature, is that, kind of rhythmic thing that comes with each and everything that you look at. It has its own identifier, just like I'm Rebecca, you're Tobias, and we have Greenheart, and et cetera and so forth. We've got all these lovely people. And so they're all individual energy signatures. There could be 10 Tobiases out there. There could be 10 million Tobiases. There could be 100 million Rebeccas, but we all will have a different energy signature. And if you can learn to get into that, you get into the rhythm of it, it becomes almost second nature to you. It's a extremely valuable tool,
And it's natural, and it's something that's been separated from our nature overall.
Yes.
So when I experience, I don't even like to say the words, but when I experience the majority of the population on this planet so detached from that realization and that natural experience, it's very, very disconcerting to me, because it's like walking around with a blindfold. And again, I'm not saying that to be negative or to be mean or anything like that. I'm saying that in reality, because what you just said there, Rebecca, is so valuable. It's so valuable for people to realize that there is this whole other world around us that in most cases people are missing, because the value comes in because at least when people are aware that it exists through the things, stories they hear, and if they're not experiencing it themselves, then they can look for it and then they can work towards it. Because if we didn't talk about these things, then they would never happen for anyone, I think, if we didn't have our own experiences, So yeah, I mean, I could almost get nauseated in my stomach if I actually think back to the years when I myself was disconnected from these things, because it's not living. It's not living. You're missing so much of what's really happening. It's brutal. Yeah.
So I started out tonight's show, and I don't know if you were listening at that point, but I started out the show talking about my chaotic Monday. And when I said that, I meant that very sincerely. It's been an extraordinarily chaotic day, and it carried a specific energy signature. So anything that I knew, if I had planned anything for the day, that it would not be able to be seen to its end or its completion on this day, because the energies were such that they were so prevalent that you could almost see it. For me, I could almost see the chaos. I could certainly feel it. And everybody I ran into, it was the same thing. It was, they were very full of chaotic energy. And so there was a couple of people that I met with today that, they're normally a chaotic person. They create chaos wherever they go. And this person's chaos was so far out of order that I had to step back. It actually kind of stressed me out. I had to step back from this person, and I still haven't quite come to a conclusion yet, because I have to make some choices and decisions about this individual on whether or not I want to continue to interact with them, because knowing that they're so full of chaos, I'm not here to change anybody else, right? That's not my job. My job is to be responsible for myself and how I affect other people. My job, as I call it, is to help people who ask me for advice or information. That's my job. My job is to share, right? But I don't do that unless somebody asks me to do that. And that's not where this person is. They don't want, they love this chaos. They live in it. And there are some people that just thrive off of it. They do. It becomes their, their reason for existence, because there's always a problem. There's always an issue. There's always something going on. It's always drama, right? It's very dramatic. And it's causing me a great deal of consternation, because I have to step back and think about this, because there's parts of this that mean a lot to me. When dealing with this individual, but the individual themselves is the one I have to deal with when I'm there, and I just am not sure what to do about it yet, because it's my choice whether or not I want to be involved in that, knowing that I would have to steel myself, strengthen myself every time I stepped in their presence to not, because it doesn't affect me, but it gets to the point where I just can't I can't hardly handle being around people that create this thing that we all don't need. Purposely they do that. And this person isn't going to change. They really, really enjoy this lifestyle, right? Because it kind of
hmm
is a choice in a sense, right? It's not
hmm
like she hasn't been told about this. So, there are people that you will see like that. Maybe you have a little bit of that in your own life. I'm not talking about you specifically, but somebody out there. So just know that, anytime that you are chaotic yourself, you kind of feed that energy, and that's the thing that we don't want to do, right? So,
mm
yeah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to feed it. We don't want to give it power. We don't want to give it,
Oh,
recognition. Hey, this is controlling me, because it isn't. It doesn't
oh,
have to. That's kind of where I was going with this, is that my choice is, do I continue to interact with this person knowing that I would have to, totally block myself from this individual energetically, because that chaos it's like somebody just slamming me right in the face. I kid you not. It's
hmm
just like,
hmm
like you're being assaulted, right?
It is truly an assault. The chaos energy is absolutely an assault on every level.
Yeah. And and I just choose not to be a part of that. That's just something I just, have, honestly made a conscious choice going, that's just not my world. That's just not how I choose to live my life. And not to say that I'm all peace and serenity. That's not it either. I'm a pretty high energy person. I'm energetic. I am very, very, energetic. That's different than being chaotic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, serene is good for when you're meditating and you just need, to decompress, but, energetic for when you want to, get something done, you want to go somewhere, you want to be, extremely upbeat,
Passion.
yes, passion.
Want to
That's
be
exactly it.
passionate.
Yep.
And passion, I was talking with one of my students today about this very subject.
There we go.
Passion is one of the energy types. It's a literal thing again. Is one of the energy types that is the key to the matrix, to the construct, pulling it out of people because it defeats them. Without
Yes.
passion, there can be no progress. Without passion, there can be no joy. Very little joy, not real joy. Passion, they absolutely attack passion. And it's interesting what you're talking about here, because you're talking about the chaos energy within the people. And I made a comment in the chat box here that some people have actually mistaken chaos for passion. So they've switched because the passion has been taken out of them, that the closest next thing they can get to that sort of energetic buzz is the chaos energy. Completely different, but at the same time, there's similarities there. Opposite ends of the scale, but they still create this sort of mental reality. It's horrible. Fascinating to see, but horrible nonetheless. And here's the thing with chaos. I mean, the chaos system, it's very, very difficult to defeat unless you walk away. It reaches into you. It creates the same energy within your own energy system, within your own physical energy system, and it makes you want to fight it, but you can never win because it is the nature of chaos to never resolve. Chaos never resolves itself. So that's one of the things that I've had, some challenges, with dealing with the chaos energy, even though I've had great practice for many, many years and have quite a deep understanding of what's going on. It still challenges me because I'm like, you know what? I'm very outspoken. I must tell the truth. I must say what I'm thinking. Not without filters. I'm not saying in a mean way, but I want everything to be disclosed. I want disclosure in the real world at all times. I like things to be out there in the open. And chaos is something that absolutely will interfere with all of this, and it will push your buttons, and it will make your mind shut down to the point where all you're doing is doing what it does itself. You're screaming back, you're dropping, expletives, and you're fighting it, but there's no fighting chaos because it is the name of the game of chaos. It is the fight. So it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary and very, very difficult to deal with. But again, with more information, more understanding, and more knowledge of how it works, and what is happening, then and only then are you forearmed and can actually do something about it, even if that just means turning around and walking the heck the other way.
Exactly. And that's very well said. Because chaos, there is no, like you said, there is perfectly said, there is no resolution. It's just, it exists. It's kind of like tonight when, and that we started the show, there was no opening credits. Now that could have been made into this big chaotic mess, but it wasn't, and just like I addressed the technology, I kind of just look at everything going, well, this day surely didn't go the way that I thought it should, but hey, it's okay. It turned out the way that it did, right?
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where you just don't buy that story. Don't buy it.
No, exactly.
You just don't buy it. You just go, it is the way that it is, and we're just going to keep moving forward. You just have to keep moving forward. That's all you can do. Now, there's one thing here that I need to speak to before I forget about it. And this was about the getting kind of back into the construct, because the construct is about chaos as well. I mean, that's a huge, it's a wonderful programming technique, by the way, because it, as you said, it just chaos, there is no resolution. So it's just a constant state of beingness. That's its state of being. So there's no changing it. There's no talking about it. It's just, you don't accept it or you do accept it, right? And that doesn't mean you fight against it, because then you're buying into it. That's buying into it. But when we're talking about like our thoughts, and if you have these interruptions, right? And you feel like you're being interrupted, or, all of a sudden you can't think of things, or these thoughts come into your mind and you're going, now why are those thoughts coming into my mind? If you stop and think about it, and as soon as you think about it, what you need to do is go, well, that's not the thought that I want to have. Those are not the memories I want to recall. Because there is a program out there that plays and replays the natural guilt of humans, the embarrassment or humility points that we've probably all experienced in our life. It will keep replaying these things that make you feel less than or insignificant, or make you feel more humiliated or less confident. These little things will keep triggering in your mind and replaying your life, in this life cycle. And when it does that, you have to go, I don't need to hang on to that memory, because that memory is something that you've already learned from. It's a past. There's nothing you can do to change it, except for make sure that those situations don't arise in your space again. And you certainly, hopefully, as you get older, you get wiser and you know how to circumvent situations so that you don't get into those spaces of feeling humiliated or less confident, or whatever the case may be, or embarrassed, whatever. I used to be one of those, believe it or not, I used to be extremely shy. I know most people go, there's no way, but I was.
Me too,
I was very
Rebecca.
shy. I really was. I couldn't talk to anybody. And so once I finally got, I had to learn how to do that. I took speech classes so that I could, it was actually, the speech class was like for debate team. I never went on the debate team, but I had to, it was what taught me to get up and speak in front of people. I had to get over it, because that was the most embarrassing thing for me, is not being able to talk to people, right? Had all these things to say and nothing would come out, and I would just kind of fall over my own tongue, and it was just embarrassing. So I had to learn how to do that. So as I got older and I realized that, I need to speak. There's things that I need to share. There's things that I need to do. So this was one of the things that the construct has repeated back and back and back and back in my head. All these different situations where I embarrassed myself, I said the wrong thing at the wrong time. It was, kind of humiliating, right? And so now I get where, if I make a mistake, I'll go, oh, wait a minute, let me reframe that, or I'll laugh at myself. Oh my God, you hear what I just said? That sounds so stupid, because honestly, we're human, right? So we're not going to be in a state of what we call, I think we are perfect in our inconsistencies, right? In delivery or whatever we're performing, whatever we're doing, whatever we're putting our mind to, it's okay because there's perfection in that imperfection. We're okay.
Beautiful. Yeah, exactly. There is.
Yeah. So when you get those little memories that keep coming up, you have to push them aside. You have to say, I don't accept those. Doesn't mean that this energy isn't going to keep trying to invade, but the more you push it aside, eventually it lessens because it's going to move on to an easier target.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's how these things work. Just the things that you're explaining there. Again, it falls right in line with what we've been discussing for the last hour. It is the artificial intelligence system of the construct, or the intelligence system of the construct. It gets into the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, the energy environments that hold this information. I was mentioning that it will take information from the distant past. It will even take information from the distant future. It's because it can. These things exist at all points. So it goes into the things that we fear. It goes into our deepest recesses of our minds, and it'll pull information out of these energy environments because it's recorded there, and it will use them against us. It will absolutely use them against us. And again, these are things that are hard to see because sometimes they're very, very subtle. Other times they mimic things that are natural. So of course it's natural in many cases to feel insecure, or it's natural to, second guess what we're thinking or saying or doing. But the unfortunate reality of the construct and the system is that it will reach into you, it will read that information, and it will play it back to you, as Rebecca said. It will not only play it back to you, but it will add other components to the recipe. So these are programs of self-defeat. And again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about the fact that the truth is the whole system in place at this point is one that is to make sure that you stay in line and with what they want and expect of you, and that doesn't leave too much room for the natural ability of a lot of us to excel and be really great and change the world to a better thing and experience the passion and grow the passion and live and spread the passion. So, it sounds very doomy and gloomy sometimes, but the fact is, the reason I talk about these things, and you as well, Rebecca, are because without knowing and understanding that these things are in play and how they're working, then there's kind of no hope if we just don't even know they're there. So it's not that we, want to make people depressed talking about these subjects by any means. It's to empower people. That's what it is. It really, really is, because again, I always look back to my own experiences, and I was defeated before I understood what's going on. I was defeated before I could recognize what's happening and make a difference to it, and learn the skills and the abilities and the practices and the tools to actually fight it. Because I'm a fighter, man, and everybody should be a fighter, especially when it comes to what is good and what is natural, because that's what's missing.
Right. And that's really what we have to get back to. We have to get back to what's natural. And there's a lot of, if you stop and think about your life, there's a lot of things that are unnatural. I mean, one of my big sources of that is, talking about our food and our water and our air. There we go. Yeah. And our land, right? Everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much artificial stuff out there. So what we have to do is we have to clear the space. And in order to clear that space, we all have to understand what that space is. So that's really what this is mostly about, is just understanding what it is. And it's not about getting depressed over it, because that's exactly against what it is that we're trying to imbue here, and we're trying, pardon me, to share here, is how to get back to whatever it is that you need to get back to so you can clear the air. And the more people that can do this, the less functionality that this kind of construct or matrix has, because it has to feed off of the energy. And if that energy, it's kind of like if you turn down the wattage, I don't care if you have a 60-watt light bulb and your wires that fuel that can't handle that 60 watts and it can only handle 20 watts, then that's all you're going to get out of that 60-watt light bulb. It's just going to make it dimmer. And the dimmer that this becomes, the stronger our light becomes, the stronger our energy field becomes. And it gets back to, I want to go back to 2012 when the big hubbubaloo in 2012 obviously was that, this is it. This is the end of the Mayan calendar. Everybody's going to cease to exist or something, right?
Yeah,
of course,
the
we all know
2012 croc.
Yeah. Just like it was in the Y2K there, that one. Yeah.
Right.
That one too. Yeah. Y2K. In any case, in 2012, the whole idea behind it, and it actually goes back to 1988 in the harmonic convergence. I mean, this is when things really started shifting big time. It's back in the harmonic convergence. And it keeps building its energy in a positive way for those who can step into that space. You have to be able to step into that space, so you have to know what that space is before you step into it. And then we get into the whole 2012 thing and the Mayan calendar. They brought that forward. But what that really was a reconnection of the grid system. I'm going to say it like that because there's a lot of different grid systems, but there was a grid system put into place that would connect different sites on this globe, that what it does is it helps to unite humanity should they choose to look for those signatures. That's what it was about. And the more of humanity that can connect to that grid system, the less likely the construct will be able to maintain its current structure. In other words, it weakens the structure of it. Remember, it's a technology. It's not a actual machine that has gears and et cetera, et cetera. It's a technology. And it can be felt. And for some people it can be seen. But if you can get past that and connect into that grid system, that it was actually a reconnection of the grid system. That grid system existed a long time ago and was taken down. There were several things that took it down, but the last big thing that took disconnected a lot of it was the destruction of Atlantis. That's what took down a lot of the grid system, the connection of it. It kind of broke it up a little bit. Because everything changed at that point, right? Some people call it the Great Flood, whatever, it all depends on how you look at it. So I'm going to just say it like that, and you kind of just draw your own conclusions. But that was the system itself. That grid system was what was in place that allowed us to be less dense. We were all more high-minded. We were able to tap into what you call the magic, right? And utilize that by utilizing crystals, et cetera, and so forth. So, that being said, there's a lot of people out there that understood this and still understand that. And that's part of what I want to get into with the writing of this book, one of the books that I'm going to be doing, which is The Construct. It talks a little bit more, really specifically, speaks to that, specific, process, I guess you could say. So, but yeah, it's not about fear mongering, not in the least. It's about education. And if you like what you hear, then by all means, please do explore it. Find some information, do your own research, see how it resonates with you. Does it resonate with you? What Tobias is saying, what I'm saying. Is it something that you're interested in knowing more about? Well, that's what Tobias and I are here for. So, we welcome that.
Um, okay. Think I concluded that for the moment. Where would you like to go from here, my dear one?
Well, absolutely. Here's the thing. It's really fascinating that you went back to Atlantis there briefly because, um, every once in a while I talk about the different things that I teach and that I do in my practices, and really all of the things we've spoken of tonight, with the artificial intelligence, with the energies, with the psychic system that runs through the consciousness field. All of these things seem very defeating. But even when you refer to Atlantis, like you did there, you're referring to the same energy fields. You're talking about the chi field, you're talking about the passion field, all of these energies that ran through the grid naturally before it was affected adversely, so that there was passion, there was higher mindedness, etc., and so forth. And now it's much more difficult to get there from here. As we all, I think, can agree, it's very, very challenging to get to these things that subconsciously and in our distant memories we know and absolutely feel in our hearts should be much more natural. And these are all the reasons for it. So it's fascinating that it sort of came to that point with Atlantis in the discussion tonight, because that's a big part of what I integrate into the things that I teach. There are technologies, modern day technologies, modern practices, beyond anything that I've ever seen really widely publicly talked about, probably because the chaos field is destroying the possibility of that information getting out. But the truth is, just as there were technologies in the past with crystals and pyramids that enhanced the consciousness field, they enhanced psychic abilities, they enhanced living. There are technologies available and practices available, even if it's organite. There's so many levels of things that can be applied to change these things and to take back the balance, as you were describing with the construct. The more people that can take back the balance, that can recognize these things, the more it takes the energy out of the construct. And that's exactly right, because that is the perpetual balance of nature. So when we're talking about being aware of what's going on, when we're talking about specific information related to what you can do or what to watch for, this is exactly the reason for that. It's because the knowledge itself is shifting the balance in the favor of those who are aware of it. And it's so, so important. So yeah, I mean, I get very, very, very passionate about the things that you teach, Rebecca, the things that I teach, and the things that we do every day and share and talk about, because to me it means hope, it means change, and I'm the first person to say, look, I am not satisfied with the way the world is now. I am not satisfied with reality. I am not satisfied with the way things are going. Absolutely not. And anyone who says or feels, oh no, this is okay, I'm just going to stay off in my little corner here and repaint my picket fence every 3.5 years, that is certainly your prerogative, but it is not helping. It's not helping things, and it's certainly not building a great future for our children, for our future people. And in fact, wow, if we come back time and time again, it's sure not building a very great future for ourselves next time around, is it? So I say we have to learn things now. We have to deal with things and learn how to deal with things. We really do. If we just stay, this is another part of the system. This is another part of the matrix, the construct, that makes people sit back and they're like, oh, well, that makes them unable to talk about things like this even. Or if they can talk about things like this, it makes them unable to act on it, because it's very difficult to grab onto things that will actually make a difference. This is the program. This is a major program that we've been talking about all night tonight, really. This is the major component of the program of the construct, to ensure that people are quite helpless, quite helpless. So, this is all information about empowering ourselves as individuals. And I say it probably once or twice a week at least to different people that I connect with. I say, you know what? I don't think that I can change the world, but I honestly think that the more people that can, do some of the things we're talking about and be aware of these things and counteract them so that they can get more of this energy, for themselves, so that they have higher minded information, clearer information, and more potent thinking, then I think we can all change the world together. I really think that there's hope, and there's hope for the future. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I don't see hope if it stays the way it is. The only hope I see is if we actually do something to change things, and that is where my passion comes from. Always, every single day, that's where my passion comes from. So when I talk about, the courses that I teach, or the things that I talk about, or the people I connect with, I'm so passionate about it because these are the people that are going to make a better world for every single person that's still here. These are the people that are going to do it. It's not going to be the government. It's not going to be, the education system that's in place. It's not going to be the doctors. It's going to be the new world. And, while that may sound a little creepy to some people, it is nonetheless the truth. I know, we have to empower ourselves, and on every level. We need to take back this education that they fed us for so long and said, this is the way things are. This is the way things should be. This is how you should think and act and do. And these are the systems that you should be dependent upon. Those are not the things that I want. Those are not the natural things. The natural things actually are for us to be able to take care of our own selves, to think for ourselves, to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves, and to progress ourselves, to not just sit within this black pool of in motion or unmotion. It's to create new things and a new world and new exciting things. People talk about Lemuria and Atlantis, and they talk about how brilliant it was, how the culture was incredible, and how people were healthy and there was no sickness. There was technologies that were incredible. There was interplanetary, communications and visitations, and it was a whole other reality. And at this point in our reality, the majority of people on this planet, they think that that's not even real if they've even heard of it. How sad a situation is it that we have come so far backwards, the wrong way. It's not progress. We've come to a point where the majority of people say, that's just a fantasy. That's just a fable. What do you mean? And if even they get a fleeting glimpse of their past through their conscious mind, it's pushed out by this construct. It's pushed out by these artificial intelligence systems that say, nah, you can't go there. We don't want you thinking about those things. And that goes for people's very own past. It goes for technologies of the past. It goes for intelligent things. Everything is blurred and torn. There's a song that I've found years ago, and it's called 7 Rings in Hand. And it's from some cartoon or some anime. And one of the things that it talks about, the whole premise of the song is what we're talking about. This system makes things that come into your head that are real. It makes memories from the past, information from other places. It blurs them. It makes us, so we really need to rethink the way they say myths are. Part of the song, it says, make-believes reborn, myths in mind rethought. Question all that's known, legends blurred and torn. And this is exactly what this system does. It creates the things that are, or it causes the things that are actually real within our own conscious mind and subconscious. It blurs them and tears them up and makes us think that they're not real. And that is why we feel so separated and oftentimes helpless in our world because we seek that which makes us feel good, and we think, no, there's got to be more than this. It seems like there should be more. I mean, I feel like there should be more, but I don't know how to get there from here. And these are the things that this system, the construct, is blurring and tearing, and it makes us have to truly rethink everything. And that's not something that's a comfortable thing for every single person to do, because it can turn your world upside down. Even the crazy world, it can turn upside down, but it's got to be done. It's got to be done.
So let's look at what they have recently discovered in the last rediscovered in the last 10 to 12 years. We have archaeological digs all over this world that are coming up with more and more and more and more proof, if you will, substantiated proof of all this extreme architecture that we can't do today, supposedly. All of that, right? That were, I just was watching a show the other night on the pyramids, how they could not build, how many actual blocks there are on the pyramid, et cetera, and so forth. How many blocks were in each of these different temples. There was these temples over in Hamby that they're made out of granite pillars. They call them columns, some kind of a column. And they actually play different tones of music when you touch them, but they're solid granite. There's all this sound technology that they used to use. There's, all of this architecture. There's these statues that, have been created in the likeness of somebody, right? And you can tell by looking at these structures that their architecture is way more refined and certainly more complex than what we have now. Look at Pumapunka. Totally different from everything else, right? And I mean, these things existed way, way long time ago. So we have to ask ourselves, have we evolved or have we devolved? And I think in much of the case, we've devolved as far as our technological information, but that's part of the construct. It took us from an evolutionary cycle to a de-evolutionary cycle. And now we're all regaining access to, memories that we thought were gone. And so all these myths, just like that song, that's perfect. All these myths, all these legends, all these places. We're going to eventually have to rewrite our history. And that's exactly what we're doing in the now. We are rewriting history. Every time they come up with something new, a new find, a new archaeological dig, a new scientific fact. They've got new kinds of technology out there. They're not using just radiocarbon dating anymore. They have found that new technologies, I can't even begin to pronounce the names, that are able to date things that were previously dated, and found that they were way older than what they previously thought, because the science is catching up a little bit with all of this. And so eventually science is going to prove what we already know, each and every one of us, that there is way more out there going on. There is way more to our history, and all of this will be uncovered. And that was actually part of the series that I never finished on The Great Revealing. It was all about not only humanity's origins, but it was also about what this earth was, what was here. And there was so many different types of beings that were present on this planet way before what we call our modern man. They keep trying to get us back to this point of evolutionary thing, from all the different Cro-Magnon man on up, right? And that's part of our history, but it's not all of it. What about all of those other beings, that all these carvings from everywhere? These aren't just figment of people's imaginations, these intricate carvings of these huge statues everywhere. They're just everywhere. The proof is everywhere on this planet. All we have to do is embrace it. We have to embrace it and say, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's more than what the books are telling us. Because I'm going to tell you that that there's an absolute truth to all of the school systems
that are using the same school books that I used when I was in high school, and that was way long time ago. And they don't change them. And the reason why they don't change it, like Columbus supposedly discovering America, right? Well, we know that's not true. We absolutely know that's not true. But they say it's too expensive. So what are they doing? They keep feeding the children the same thing. So I ask all the parents out there, how come you're not standing up to the school systems and saying, hey, don't do that. Don't do that. We want some new books. Let's see. They are, they're sorting out some problems. There we go. I think we're taking a break.
Sounds great.
Or we're not. We are. We'll be back.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Fenton Perspective here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I'm your host, Lorianne Fenton. We're with my friend Tron today, and he's telling us some amazing things that you all need to know. And we were just talking to
that's
friend
strange,
Melissa,
isn't it?
saved his life.
That's very weird.
About what she was. The last I think we were at is that she's a mystic and that she had lots of books
And
in her
Lauren,
house.
can you hear me?
And you were...
Hello?
Oh, that's better. Okay, I think they've cleared that one. I think that was the studio.
Oh my
event.
gosh. What a Monday this has
What
been.
a Monday. Anyway, I think all appears to be clear, madam, and you may step carefully on the deck again.
I see. You just gotta love this stuff. I mean, yeah, seriously, this has just been too much fun. I mean, I never get to hear Lorian anyway, so that was kind of a nice little break. And a break at half an hour before the show ended is just lovely.
I enjoyed it thoroughly.
I know. I mean, we got pretty intense there, so it kind of lightened the load a little bit, so that was a really, really good thing, right? Yeah, it was totally lovely. I just enjoyed it. And I was getting these messages and I was like, why is she writing me? She knows I'm on the air. And it was all about that they were getting ready to do a break and I wasn't reading her text. She Skype texted me and I was like, oh, okay, so there's the break. And I went back and read it and they was like, we're trying to fix all this stuff on Revolution Radio. So I'm glad they've got it fixed and they're back up and on the air, and hopefully they'll be stable at least for as long as they can be, right? I mean, this technology, we're still dealing with it. In any case, welcome back everybody. Welcome back Tobias. Thank you, JP. Thank you, Revolution Radio and Wolf Spirit Radio, and certainly all the audience for hanging tough. It has been a pretty interesting night, to say the least, the whole day. It's been kind of like that. I think maybe some people might want to for some people the last few days may have been like a roller coaster. You go up, and then you come back down, you go up and you go back down. Not that the down is necessarily a negative, it's just maybe it evens out a little bit. So just know that it is part of, what I call the new energies that are here on this planet. And, it's just, you just gotta go along for the ride. It's about being fluid. It's about holding your own, keeping your head above the water and just knowing that you can float through it. And then when it stabilizes somewhat, then you can just get back at whatever it is you're doing. I want to talk to people, Tobias, about, we were talking about like when you send people to either look stuff up on the internet or to read a book or whatever the case may be. A lot of times people are having trouble focusing. We call that an interference, and a lot of times it can be an interference. And so when that case happens, you can again just try to take just a deep breath in, close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath in and exhale. Do that a couple of times until you can feel your body relax. Sometimes you can do that enough to where it literally helps, because a lot of times people, when they get where they can't get to what they're looking for, they get frustrated. They may get a little angst out. And it's always good just to step back, just step off and just take a deep breath. And I tell people, look, if you're having to struggle with it, you take a few deep breaths. If you still can't get there, try it a little bit later on in the day. The wonderful thing about energy and about how your day's going to go is that if you give it enough time and there's enough movement in the planetary systems out there, it shifts the energy. And if you become energy sensitive, you can feel it. You can feel that, whatever it is, maybe oppressive weight. For me, that's what it feels like sometimes, is an oppressive weight, or it feels like, I just can't get past there. And it's very different than an interference. It comes literally from the stars, if you will, from the movement of the planets and everything else. And so sometimes it's just a little bit later in the day, again, finding that point in time when one point of your day is usually better than another point of your day. Try doing it when you're feeling like your biorhythms are on an upswing and not a downswing. My absolute worst time to do anything is usually between the hours of 3 p.m. and I'm in Central Time, 3 p.m. to about 6 p.m. to sit down and do anything that creates this, reading or focus or anything like that. It's just not for me, that's my specific biorhythm. So everybody has them, and it doesn't mean that they always stay the same, because mine has changed through the years, but it usually, when it does change, it'll stay like that new biorhythm for a long period of time so that you can get adjusted to it. You can work within those parameters. Again, biorhythms are just your own internal energies talking to you. Learning to become subtle and listening to the subtleties of your own body will help you tremendously. So if you're struggling with something, don't struggle with it. Just step back, take a deep breath, shake it off, try it again. If it doesn't work that day, try it the next day. Try different times of your day. Play around with it, because every time you do something, it may be different each time you do it. May not be a rhyme or reason as to what is the best time of the day to do it. Just only when it feels right. When you begin to really sync up with that internal conversation that's going on energetically, it'll just become like a second nature to you. So I hope that helps people out there, especially when you're trying to get things done and you're trying to learn new things, you're trying to expand and get into that higher mindedness. There's all these little tips and tidbits that you can do in order to get more in tune with yourself so that you can become more in tune with the information that you're seeking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. All of these things have a pronounced effect on our existence, our consciousness, on our brains and our brain waves, all of these things. So when you say, try to take the ebb and flow of the day and figure out what's the best time for you, absolutely. Take some time out and do some meditation and do these practical things, very, very important, because we have to realize that the environment of the world around us has a constant ebb and flow and influx of these things that literally change our brain waves. They adapt our thinking. They come through the air, through the ground, whether it's right. Wi-Fi signals, or whether it's, HARP, or whether it's the woodpecker in Russia going through the earth grid up into our feet. It's all of these things that have a very real effect on the way we can concentrate, and of course, if our concentration is off, or if our thinking is affected, it's just going to, domino through the rest of our physical body and our lives. So this is what happens. So, obviously meditation is one of the age-old secrets to trying to, neutralize those effects or minimize them and get control over our thinking and our reality again. But there's other things as well. This is why the practices of, is it Qigong and all of these different body mudras and different hand mudras and body movements and energy systems have been practiced for more than thousands of years, because these things affect a real change within the body's system and the energy system, and thus will cause a change in your mind, in your consciousness field, and it literally changes things that are measurable scientifically, of course. And again, I always talk about different technologies, even if the most simple energy technology is orgonite. A lot of people I know make orgonite and use orgonite. You can use that to affect different changes within your reality system, your energy system, and there's many, many other things that you can utilize as tools as well that are very powerful, that counteract They counteract not all, because there's nothing that I know that can counteract all of the barrage of things that are hitting us each day, but counteract even some of them, you're going to make a difference. And when you can create that difference, it creates the edge. It creates an edge. We need an edge within this reality, within this world today, so that we can tip that balance that we talked about a little while ago.
Yeah, and there are other things, simple things. Aromatherapy is another one that's just a nice subtle touch that you can add to your space. Reflexology, those are also helpful. Just taking a walk outside. There's just simple things. Just like they told me years ago, I was literally coming out of my house, stop and smell the roses. I mean, how many times have you ever heard that statement, right? Well, literally, I was like stopped, and I had to go over to my rose bush and smell it. And when I did, it was like this little shift took place. Seriously, it took place. And I was like, okay, I got it. I absolutely got it. It was just like, here's this thing, stop and smell the roses. It just meant stop and be aware, be appreciative, recognize the blade of grasses that you're standing on, right? Recognize the leaves that fall, the smells that are coming from the blossoms of the trees and the flowers. And, at that time I was, had strawberries growing. There was all kinds of just wonderful little things, right? And it was stop and smell the roses. All of those things help bring you back into that sync of natural space, natural beingness, right? Good. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. Simple things. Meditation. Not difficult, not easy for some, because there's always that chatter that goes on. That constant chatter that we get, and it's learning how to control that chatter to where you get into a space of no space is what I called it. And I wanted to tell people that on my website, I think it's under the store page. I'm not quite sure. I've redone some of it, and I don't really know what all I've redone, but it's where some things are for sale. But at the very bottom of there's some free meditations, absolutely free. You can download them. So anybody that they're old, but they're very effective. They may help. I found that there's some people that I've attended some, seminars and workshops, and, where other people have led meditations, and some of them I just can't get into. Could be the sound of the voice. It could be, just the meditation, whatever they're saying. Just doesn't get me from point A to point B. And I'm not saying that my meditations in there will help everyone, but if it helps you, great. Please take advantage of it. It's free, journeyswithrebecca.com. Check it out, free meditations. If anybody has any problems with them, please let me know by writing me at journeyswithrebecca@yahoo.com. Kind of wanted to mention that. And JP said he had that rose thing, stop and smell the roses thing today. So it must be a thing. Because it's a subtle thing, but it's also a very positive and powerful little statement. Literally, stop and smell the roses, as a literal and not literal translation in both cases. So it's just really all fun. It's just really cool. So before we wind everything up, I wanted to let people know I'm redesigning two of my classes, and one of them is the Atlantis Healing Chamber, and the other one is I'm restructuring my empath class. They're all going to be really fabulous, and then I'm going to be offering a second timeline class for those that may be experiencing either extreme past lives or want to go back into what I call pre-karmic wheel here on this planet incarnations. So it would be off-world basically, or those that want to access what we call the future timelines. That class will be offered as well here in the very near future. So please stay tuned for those announcements on those classes that I will be rescheduling or will be scheduling very soon. And that's again will be in my newsletter
or if you visit my website on a regular basis, it should have something on the front page to let you know, that there's, new classes that have been scheduled, or you can follow me on Twitter. So I have a Twitter. You can sign up for that to follow me there on Twitter. I always forget to mention that kind of stuff. I'm also on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook as well. I don't, post to that as often as I probably should, but, I try to get to it at least once a week to post the show, if nothing else. So if there's anything new, I'll try to remember to put it on the Facebook. So look forward to maybe seeing some of you guys there. If you have any questions on any of those classes or any of the services I provide, please don't hesitate to write me, because that's what I'm here for, is to help answer any questions and to assist you in your own personal journey on this planet. And I know that you're, very busy these days as well, Tobias. I know you've, got a lot of things going. You've got some classes and educational, processes that you're currently involved with as well. I don't know what your, current availability is, how far people have to book out, for you. But that's something that you may want to mention real quick.
Yeah, I on that topic, yeah, people have been having a hard time booking that wanted to get in right away. Sometimes they're looking at over a month before they can get in to see me. It's just been really hectic, but it's good because it means the momentum is building and more people are, practicing these things. And like I said, it's all about passion and making the world a better place. And I really, truly mean that. Yeah, I've got my one-on-one mentorship program that I do one-on-one sessions with people. I'm constantly writing, new material, for different programs that are coming up. Sort of smaller programs. My mentorship program is a very intensive 16-week one-on-one program where I connect one-on-one with people by video call. And I truly, if you really want to know the truth of this reality in this world and how to, work with it, that is a program that's not for everybody. But if it's what you're looking for, it's absolutely mind blowing. And the feedback that I'm getting from the different students that are, more than halfway through the program, and finishing up the program, they're absolutely delighted. I just absolutely love, being a part of all of it. Of course, you can find me at ET Languages. ET is an extraterrestrial. etlanguages.com. There's always updates there. I too am all over Facebook when I can be. And I even have an Instagram, which I managed to even post tonight's show on, which I'm very proud of myself. But I try to keep...
And I have an Instagram account and have never used it. I don't know what to do with
it. And I just
tweet.
It's part of the reality of getting information out these days. And even the algorithms of YouTube. I have a YouTube channel too, Tobias G. Harrell. The algorithms they use are actually making it much more difficult for people to spread their word. It's very, very difficult, even though on the face of it, it looks like, you can just post something and it'll just snowball into this big thing if it's important. That's simply not the way it works. So something that you mentioned at the beginning of the show was newsletters.
Yes.
Newsletters are where it's at. If you really want to keep in touch with Rebecca or myself or anyone else, don't depend on YouTubes and Facebook and seeing everything there. If you want the important information that's current and stuff, please, 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 sign up for our newsletters, because the algorithms of Facebook and YouTube and probably even Instagram are being modified and have changed already, so that it's much, much harder for us to sort of spread this word out to bigger amounts of people. And we want to keep in touch, because without our ability to keep in touch with you, then there's nothing. So please, by all means, please, sign up with our newsletters. And we don't even send newsletters out that much. It's just when it's important stuff in our minds, right?
Yeah, I actually try to send mine out about twice a month. Every once in a while, it'll be once a month, and then every so often, it'll be once every 3 times a month. I don't even send it out once a week, because I have my guests set up a couple of weeks, usually at the minimum in advance. So I will send out a newsletter that gives at least 2 weeks, if not more, information about who the guests are going to be. And any of the classes are also announced on those dates. The only time that I send out an additional newsletter where the guest isn't concerned is if I've added a new date or if I've added a class that came up after I'd already sent out another newsletter. So it's not even like a daily thing. It's not even a weekly thing. For me, it's like usually twice a month is about what people will get a newsletter. So it's not like all the time. So yeah, I mean, and in newsletters anymore, and I don't know if people understand this, you can't just send out to a bunch of people on your mailing list.
No.
I actually have a company that does that. Mine goes out through MailChimp, and you have to sign up. I can't even sign you up. And once you sign up, you'll get this thing that says, did you mean to sign up? So it gives a second thing here so that you have an option at that point of continuing on or going, I didn't do that, or somebody else in the household did that, or whatever the case may be. So only you can subscribe to it, and only you can unsubscribe to it. It makes it very easy to do either one. So, but that's to keep honest people honest. Honestly, it really is. And I respect that. I truly do with those things. And it also literally takes a load off of having to type in everybody's email address individually, and like we used to have to do and you had a little data bank of information and you would have to send it out to everybody in your mailing. So you can't do that stuff anymore because they consider it spam. Doesn't matter what it is, they consider it spam. So you have to go through one of these companies to send out your newsletters anymore. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Not a bad thing.
And even with that, 50% of subscribers never see our mailings because their email clients hide them as spam or in obscure folders. So you must add us to your accepted email list or you won't get them anyway.
That's true. That's it. And that's absolute truth. Absolute truth. And I always check my spam folder because every once in a while I'll get something that'll go into my spam folder that doesn't belong there. Every once in a while. Oh my gosh, we're already out of time. This has been really an extraordinarily enjoyable evening with Tobias and JP, along with the most chaotic Monday I've spent, and it's been enjoyable. I'm thankful to have been here with each and every one of you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Tobias. Thank you, JP, and each and every one of you. So, until we meet again, where will your life's journey lead you? Many blessings, everyone, and good night.
Thank you, Rebecca.